My name is Fantine, and men love to come into the bookstore I work at and ask, do you read books? Oh God, they're right behind me, aren't they? Me do read, me can read, me like to read. Me read 50 books last year, and I'm here to tell you about my top 10 favourites with a few honourable mentions. And if you still want to hear me yapping after that, I might have a video in the works that is every single book I read in 2023, the good and the bad, and there was some bad. So you can subscribe if you want to see that, or don't, I get it. Without further ado, here are my rapid-fire honourable mentions that didn't make the cut just. Mrs. Caliban by Rachel Ingalls. Thank you, Pookie. If he wanted to, he would. And if he won't, a 7-foot frogman who just escaped a scientific testing facility definitely will. A compelling, strange, surprising novella about those that don't fit within societal ideals and norms, and the cruel contrariety of life on Earth as a 1950s housewife enters into a beautiful love affair with a sea monster named Larry. Cursed Bunny by Bora Chung. Finally, a short story collection that covers so many of my interests. Poo, wee, menstruation, toilet monsters, hairballs, blood clots, strange pregnancies, and gentrification. The first story is absolutely incredible, and even the ones that aren't quite to my taste, the sci-fi fantasy ones, they were still incredibly well written and compelling. This is a disgusting collection for gross little freaks. I see you. Metamorphosis by Franz Kafka asks, if you woke up a giant cockroach, would those who claim to love you still love you? The answer may depress you. This is a classic for a reason. It's existential and thought-provoking, but what we really need to talk about is how sad it made me, personally. Like, is Kafka okay? Can someone check on Kafka? You have to be like the saddest motherfucker to think about this. Like, if you've been putting off reading it, just read it. It's worth it. And I guess if I was to describe it in one word, it would be Kafkaesque. The Seven Moons of Maali Almeida by Shahan Karunatilaka won the 2022 Booker Prize and is about a gay war photographer in 90s Colombo who wakes up dead and has 7 moons to solve his own murder. This is Sri Lankan magical realism, and it deals in extremes, but really at its core ends up being about those we love and who love us in return. Like, listen to this. Monsoons and full moons make all creatures stupid, especially silly boys in love. Oh, like, it's dense, it's full of history and politics, but it's so worth it. The Lover by Marguerite Duras is an autobiographical novel. In occupied Vietnam, a 15-year-old French girl begins a relationship with a much older, wealthy Chinese businessman. Her family cling to the colonizers' glory they believe themselves owed, and this relationship brings forth questions of power and privilege. Dark and disturbing and seductive, with prose that is so lush it's breathtaking. I do wish I had read this in French, as I feel something was probably lost in translation. Nevertheless, I do think about this book quite often. Getting into the top 10, I have to start with August Blue by my personal best friend, Deborah Levy. As a devout Levinator, when I heard that Deb's new book was about a former child prodigy concert pianist who dyes her hair blue and cavorts around Europe, well, I was concerned. And that was a me problem, and I should not be forgiven because why would I ever doubt Deborah Levy? Our protagonist Elsa has just walked off stage mid-show in Vienna to the confusion of her adoptive maestro father, her eccentric friends, and the general public. She is at the height of her career and has seemingly just quit. At a significant pay cut, she takes up tutoring the talented but emotionally neglected children of the wealthy. Wherever she travels, a woman is following her, narrowly avoiding confrontation every time. And why can't Elsa, for the first time in her life, shake questions around the biological mother she never knew? Blending surreal fragments and matter-of-fact prose, the pieces come together long after the final page. This is iconic of Levy, this symbiosis. It feels like her writing requires you to give something of yourself, and in return, you're rewarded. Her words take root in your brain and take on almost a life of their own. It's such a special sensation I get when I read her work that I struggle to verbalize, but I do think it comes from her background as a playwright, that awareness of the audience, and not in a self-conscious way, but in a way that she can harness the energy almost. Now, I did struggle to get used to it being set during the pandemic, and also I had a preconceived notion about something which that was my bad. Also, I'm sorry, Deb, it's impossible for me to romanticize Cafe Flore when they charge me €8 for an Orangina. Like, is the ghost of James Baldwin personally delivering the Orangina? Get a grip. Bluehead bitches really be like this. It's got cats, classical music, travel, mummy issues, swimming in the ocean, all the markers of a good Deborah Levy. Made me want to do a silly little Isadora Duncan dance and witness my own birth. Minor Detail by Adanya Shibley is a novel in 2 parts. Part 1 is detached, written almost like a log, as a group of Israeli soldiers commit a horrific war crime in the Negev desert. Decades later, a Palestinian woman comes across a record of it and is taken aback by a seemingly minor detail she just can't shake. So she sets out to learn more, but must navigate occupied land, passing checkpoints watched at every moment by soldiers. Like a mirage, history shimmers within reach as the land remembers, holds pain and suffering that cannot be bulldozed into oblivion like villages on an Israeli map. Harrowing and haunting, small revelations build this unstoppable momentum as time seems to fold in on itself. It is just so well crafted, and I've never had such a physical reaction to the final page of a novel before. It was incredible. This is a definite must-read. Blood by Rachel McKibbins does what the best poetry collections do, and that is to paint this overarching, vivid story. Every single poem gives something, whether it's exploration of family and the wounds they create, the Chicana experience, sexual identity, mental health, parenthood, domestic violence. The author's rage is so palpable, but so artfully focused into perfect expression that it gave me an adrenaline rush to read. It really feels compelled forward by this desperate need to release, and was met with my equally desperate want to understand. It's gritty and powerful and honest, and it's got to be one of the best contemporary poetry collections I've read. Legendborn by Tracy Deonn is a YA fantasy that kind of blew me away. Bree is dealing with the sudden death of her mother when she discovers that Arthurian legends may be more than just legends. She must navigate this world caught in the past and reconcile just how she, an African-American girl, came to be of this lineage. Secret societies on college campuses, reincarnated Knights of the Round Table, intergenerational trauma, love interests that didn't make me want to gouge my eyes out, and a magic source that doesn't just exist in the West. Bree is a smart and compelling protagonist, and I found this to be a really fresh and compulsive read. Although I was very disappointed with the sequel, I'll continue with this series and I'm excited to see where it goes. Sometimes there is nothing more horrific than facts, than undeniable truth. In The Ghetto Within, historic events are weaved with the author's imagining of his grandfather's life. A young man seeking independence moves from Poland to Argentina, finding love and success, ignoring the growing concerns of his family over the developing situation in Europe. He builds a life and is content, and spends years ignoring the letters from his mother. When he finally does respond, forced to face the starvation and disease of the Warsaw ghettos, it is too late, and he loses the ability to speak. There is no great mystery to this novel, no intrigue, no complex puzzle to work out, and I found it profound in its simplicity. It was also a deeply personal read that stuck with me, as the character's life starts out in such a similar way to my grandfather's, but my grandfather was not able to escape the camps. Untangling to understand the trauma of those we come from, whose blood we share, is an impossibly viscerally painful experience, and Amigarena does it with such grace and skill. With all the, let's face it, Holocaust porn that's out there, this is such a valuable and important perspective. And it's so well done. I think this is a really underrated book that a lot of people should read. All right, the first of my top 5. In Motherthing by Ainsley Hogarth, Abby's mother-in-law has gruesomely died in their basement, and after slipping the family heirloom ring off her corpse, her and her fiancé Ralph begin to be haunted. Or do they? Desperate not to lose her fiancé to his unapproving, emotionally incestuous mother, even in spirit, Abby sets out to be the perfect wife and, hopefully, mother, filling that role in Ralph's life no matter what it takes. But Abby can't escape thoughts of her own mother and the traumatic childhood memories that come with her. I can't think of many husband-wife duos that interest me in fiction, but Abby and Ralph's dynamic was so interesting as they each grapple with different forms of abuse, neglect, and control. What hope do they have? This is a disgusting horror novel full of gore, jellied meats, and cannibalism, but it's also so funny. The lack of self-seriousness, the dark humor, had me laughing out loud whilst breaking my heart. I need every unhinged book to commit this much. Damn. It's definitely not everyone's cup of tea. Our book club was very split. It veers into the experimental and can be quite detailed and explicit, but it's weird in the least cringe way possible, and it really feels like it's for the Julia Ducournau, Mariana Enriquez, Bora Chung loving little freaks, of which I am one. I see you. Chess by Stephen Spy is a novella that slays at 84 pages and is about, well, chess. We follow a man who boards a ship and ends up being on the same voyage as the Grandmaster World Chess Champion, who also happens to be an uneducated simpleton from the countryside. So, what do a bunch of egotistical businessmen do? Well, they challenge the Grandmaster to some chess games, and they lose. Duh. That is until this old, gaunt, unassuming guy chimes in with the moves to win. Who is this old guy? How does he know so much about chess? How did he just beat the best chess player in the world? The answer might be Nazis. Through succinct prose, this deceptively simple story reveals so much about the complexity of human nature and how far a mind can be pushed to deal with the horrors of the world, just how fragile sanity really is, something Candy Crush obsessed mums know all too well. Just a perfectly executed and thought-provoking little read that gave me great insight into my friend who to this day will not admit to how much real-world money she spent on the Love Island mobile game during lockdown. Her boyfriend had to forcibly delete it from her phone. I wouldn't be surprised if she has a burner phone hidden somewhere. Perhaps most impressively, this had my heart racing at descriptions of a chess game. I've never played chess in my life. I know nothing about chess. I haven't even seen the Queen's Gambit. That's how good this was. In Foster by Claire Keegan, a little girl from an impoverished Irish family is sent to live with the wealthy Kinsellers over a summer, where she experiences a different kind of love, one that allows her to blossom and change, but soon the summer must come to an end. Gentle prose and that poetic Irish melancholy tell this perfect, quiet little story about the magnitude of small kindnesses. It makes you consider the generosity you've been shown in your life, and it almost feels like a thank you to all those that have been encouraging and patient and kind and supportive, an ode to the persevering women and the gentle men and all the children raised in environments where they're forced to grow up too fast, and the unconditional love that they all deserve. And I'm going to stop crying here, but it's really like one of the most touching books I've ever read, and I want to read a little bit from it. Everything about the night feels strange. To walk to a sea that's always been there, to see it and feel it and fear it in the half dark, and to listen to this man saying things about horses out at sea, about his wife trusting others so she'll learn who not to trust, things I don't fully understand, things which may not even be intended for me. My coworker and I found the CCTV footage of the morning I came into work having finished that, and I talked to my manager who recommended it to me about it, and she has tears streaming down her face, and I fall to my knees and I have tears streaming down my face, and it's all very dramatic. But it's not actually. It's not dramatic at all, because that's how that book makes me feel. I even tried to recommend it to a customer the other day and started crying, and they were like, "Are you okay?" And I was like, "Claire Keegan, man, Claire Keegan." So I'll cap it there for fear of more tears, but just read this beautiful little story. We Have Always Lived in the Castle by icon legend star Shirley Jackson has one of the best openings of any novel I've ever read. Young Mary Catherine Blackwood, Mary Cat, must make her way from her family manor to the grocery store and back as she is jeered and screamed at, aware that one wrong move and she will be descended upon by the townspeople. This sense of foreboding builds throughout the novel as we learn more about the Blackwood family, who have clung to their wealth and status for generations as owners of almost all the land in this small New England town, isolating and ostracizing themselves. Through Mary Cat's narration, we come to understand the lengths, the bizarre compulsions and rituals she must perform in order to keep her and her beloved sister's world perfect and protected, because everyone knows that her sister Constance slipped arsenic in the sugar, killing almost the entire Blackwood family. With the Blackwood patriarch dead, the sisters live their life according to routine and rarely leave the house. Constance is stuck in this state of dutiful eldest daughter, and Mary Cat as this eternal wild child, not a girl, but not quite a woman, and sometimes when she converses with her cat, feeling not quite human. So when one day their estranged cousin turns up, expecting to be the man of the house, you can imagine there are issues. Mary Cat is one of the most compelling and disturbing protagonists I've ever read. She is crazy, and she is fearless. She is my queen. God help anyone who dare disrespect my queen. She actually reminds me a lot of young Kathy from Wuthering Heights in that almost otherworldly wildness that is brought about in young girls when unbearable pressures and expectations are placed upon them. There's a reason Shirley Jackson is an inspiration for people like Stephen King and Donna Tartt. Her work is about the horror in the mundane, the objection and the othering nature of bureaucracy and patriarchal family systems, the lengths we will go to in order to protect what we love. We eat the year away. We eat the spring and the summer and the fall. We wait for something to grow and then we eat it. Who was gagged? Who was gagged? Just straight up one of the best written novels I've ever read, and I'll stop there because I could talk about this forever. In summary, cats are freaking awesome and men cannot be trusted. She's right for that. She gets it. 2024 is going to be my year of Shirley Jackson. I just feel it. Now for the best book I read all year, my favorite read of 2023, the author I read the most of. 2023 was undoubtedly my year of Jamaica Kincaid, a coming-of-age writer like no other, truly at her best with Annie John. Kincaid's protagonists are my favorite. They are not good, they are not bad, they are that much better third thing. They are so interesting in a complex way that means they have surely been labelled unlikable by many, but to write girls burgeoning on womanhood with such boldness, such belief, they could never make me hate you. Annie John is a smart, confident, popular girl growing up on the small Caribbean island of Antigua when suddenly her life changes. She turns 12. She is no longer a girl, but a woman, and her mother, whom she's always been close to, begins to treat her differently. Generational ideals clash, and the island is a character within itself, so alive and discordant. Schoolgirls practice kissing in graveyards, doctors face pathetic fallacy, and England looms. Its customs and traditions must be honoured even in the tropical heat. Kincaid is incredible at exploring the complexity of a colonised home, of place as a parent and guardian and giver, but also as a punisher, abuser, and keeper. At its core, this is a novel of heartbreak, that first, perhaps singular heartbreak of girlhood. The realization that you're a separate being to your mother, that you will never be together in that way you once were, and that coming into your own means reckoning with this strange new loneliness. Out of the corner of my eye, I could see my mother. Out of the corner of the other eye, I could see her shadow on the wall, cast there by the lamplight. It was a big and solid shadow, and it looked so much like my mother that I became frightened. For I could not be sure whether for the rest of my life I would be able to tell when it was really my mother and when it was really her shadow standing between me and the rest of the world. Like, that quote alone, perhaps life-changing. If you get it, you get it. I've now read most of her fiction and some of her non-fiction, and I'm just obsessed with the way she spews exactly what she means without regard for convention or who will be reading it. She's just so slay. Where my Kincaidиans at? Everybody say thank you, Jamaica Kincaid. Amen. So yeah. Those were my favorite reads of 2023, and the sun went down. I didn't even notice. It's very dark in here. I was just so caught up spending time with my close personal friends, Claire Keegan, Shirley Jackson, and Jamaica Kincaid. Yes, we're best friends. Yes, we're best friends. They do know it. They're very aware. And if you want to see more of me, I'll be uploading a long-ass video wrapping up every single book I read, seeing if I stand by my original rating and review. You can follow me on TikTok, Goodreads, Letterboxd, Instagram, LinkedIn. Please connect with me on LinkedIn. That's my 2024 in. Connecting on LinkedIn. I'm going to go to the club and people will hand me their Instagram. I'll say, no, open up that LinkedIn. I need to connect. Awesome sauce. Okay, I love you. Bye.